Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. Hello, PR Maven Nation. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, episode 222. Must be really lucky because it's all twos today. The podcast is presented by Marshall Communications, creator of the Marshall Plan 65-step strategic process. And for those of you new to the show, I'm Nancy Marshall, your host, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. And with me today is a special guest, Michael Katz, who's the Chief Penguin at Blue Penguin. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, Michael.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's nice to have you too. We were just reminiscing about how long we've known each other, and it has been a long time, although we figured out in this century. So an award-winning humorist and former corporate marketer, Blue Penguin founder and chief penguin, Michael Katz, specializes in coaching professional service firms and solos in improving their marketing. Since launching Blue Penguin in 2000, Michael has been quoted in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Business Week Online, Bloomberg TV, Forbes.com, Inc.com, USA Today, and other national and local media, including the PR Maven Podcast. He is the author of 4 books, and over the past 20 plus years has published more than 500 issues of the Likeable Expert Gazette, a twice monthly email newsletter and podcast with 6,000 passionate subscribers. I love that. They're passionate subscribers. They're not just regular subscribers. They're passionate subscribers in over 40 countries around the world. Michael has an MBA from Boston University and a BA in psychology from McGill University in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. He is a past winner of the New England Press Association Award for Best Humor Columnist. So I'm so happy to have you here today, Michael.
Good to be here.
So tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Yeah. Well, I feel like my career had 2 parts. Up until I was like 40, I just had jobs, and it was fine. My last job, I was there for 12 years, and it was also fine. I worked at the cable company, so sorry. And at some point, though, I started to realize a few things. One was that I'd kind of gone as far as I was going to go. Like, I was okay. I was like your basic middle manager in a huge company. But I realized that, I'm never going much beyond that. I also felt like this is okay. I was doing marketing in the company, but I wasn't really doing anything I was particularly good at. I mean, any of 1,000 people could have easily taken my job, and nobody would have noticed. But the big thing was the internet, because this was the late 90s. And it's funny, all this sort of AI chat GPT stuff now reminds me of that. Every day there were articles, everybody's talking about it. And so I actually got involved in it really accidentally. I was just sort of standing in the right place in the company. The cable company is who invented high-speed internet. It used to be you had to dial up. And so I just happened to, whatever I was doing, I was the first dedicated employee in the whole company to the product, which at the time was just this weird side thing. And that grew, and I got really involved in it. And so it was a great, sort of 3 or 4 years. But it started to become just back being another product in the company. And so I was a little bit bored. I wanted to do more internet stuff. And so I just decided I would leave. And I was going to build websites. Back then, that was the big thing. Everybody needed a website. And it went okay, but not great. But at the same time, I like writing. I was involved in the internet. So I used to write this. It wasn't even a newsletter back then. There was really no such thing. It was just like a bulk email I sent to people in the company about stuff I found, like Amazon or, whatever. And when I left, I kept doing it. And maybe after like a year and a half working on my own and really not doing so well, people started to ask me to help them do a newsletter. And initially I was like, oh no, I can't help you. I'm busy like failing over here. I mean, I didn't think it was a thing, but I slowly saw this was what caused people to call me up or refer me or invite me to lunch or to speak or whatever. And so it developed into sort of a product. Email was taking off. And that, although I'm sort of broadly a marketing consultant, my specialty has been and still is email newsletters. And so I just sort of fell into it accidentally, but it's been a good match for me.
Well, I wanted to bring up the topic of email newsletters with you, obviously, because they are still valuable, despite what some people might say. Some people might say, oh, social media has replaced email newsletters. But talk to me about why email newsletters are still valuable.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting sort of trajectory. When I first started in 2000, the biggest objection I'd get from a potential client was not enough of their clients or customers had email. And then so it evolved over time. It used to just be email, but then like in 2005, the blog was invented. Now we could take the email and post it on a website in real time. And that was fun. And then when social media's actually worked really well for newsletters, because now you can take the stuff you've written and cut it up in pieces and sort of flow it through. So what went from just we send an email once a month, it now is it's an email, it's a blog, it's posted on your social. People, myself included, record their newsletter now as a podcast. So to me, a newsletter is sort of the anchor thing. The hard part is writing it. The rest of it's just how can you spray this thing and reuse it in other ways. I like it because, and I agree, there's been a portion of the population who've never liked it because it's too long and now it's old fashioned. That's fine. But it allows people to get a sense of who you are, which you can kind of do in a tweet, but not a lot. But maybe more important, it allows you to say what you think and for me to see how you think and what you do. And so you need a certain amount of words. And so it's sort of a nice chunk. My clients' newsletters may be 700-800 words. It's like a 3-minute read. It's no longer the exciting thing. People used to come to me for newsletters just because they thought they needed one, the way they do with social media sometimes, although they could never explain why they thought they needed one. But it's been this sort of steady thing. I keep waiting for something to replace it, but I have not seen anything that sort of ticks all the boxes of personality, knowledge, comes every month, shows up in your inbox so you don't miss it. It's it's just like a good, blocking and tackling kind of tool. So still going.
Well, my feeling about email, first of all, to earn a place in someone's inbox is sort of a place of honor. A lot of people unsubscribe stuff that they don't want to receive. So if you can produce a valuable enough email newsletter that people are willing to receive month after month, I think that's valuable to your brand. And that helps strengthen the relationship between you as the marketer and them as the recipient. And the other thing is that the fact that you send a newsletter every month and hopefully on the same day of the week, the same week of the month, for me, that shows dependability, and that's part of your brand. So if you are dependable, reliable, consistent month over month, people will grow to trust you because they know that you deliver on your brand promise. So I feel that email newsletters are very significant to this day.
Yeah. I mean, and again, I would say sometimes people say, well, I don't like newsletters. And I'm like, hey, I don't like asparagus. Like, you don't have to like, you don't need 100% of the population. Some people like listen. I even find with my own newsletter, there's a portion of the people who subscribe who click to listen to the audio version, maybe 10%.
Yeah.
It's the same people because I can look and sort of start to recognize it. That's okay. So some people like to listen. I prefer reading because I can skim it. I can't skim a podcast. But as long as you have enough of a base of people who want to take that in, and again, if you're a small company in particular, where it's such a word of mouth thing, it gives you that foundation. And as you said, the fact that it repeats means that people start to get used to you, and does lead to this whole sort of trusting you. It's a really interesting phenomenon, how people feel like they know you, even though they've never met you over time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would also venture to say that some people might not even read it at all, but they see it coming in, and it's like, oh, a ping. Oh yeah, that guy, he exists, and he's still, look at all the stuff he's writing. They may not even read it, but it reminds you, and so you remain top of mind. Whereas the person who does not do that may totally just fade away, so that when the person needs what that person offers, they can't even remember your name. They don't have your email. You know, the fact that that you're doing this, you're showing up in their inbox, then when they need what you're selling, they can reach out to you easily because they can find you in their inbox and contact you.
Yeah, I totally agree, because, you know, at any given time, most people don't need anything that anyone's selling. Like sometimes if I'm talking to an audience, I'll be like, raise your hand if you plan to buy a refrigerator in the next 15 years. Like, everybody raise their hand. And then, like, how about the next 15 days? Nobody.
Yeah.
So the problem is, I don't need what you're selling today.
Right.
But I may in a year or 2 years or whatever. And that's when I start thinking, well, who do I know who does this thing?
Right.
And this top of mindedness really matters in terms of someone at least giving you the call. So
another thing works is for word of mouth marketing. So if somebody contacts you, hey, do you know somebody who does email newsletters? Oh yeah. Blue Penguin Development. Here, I'll forward you their email. I have their email right here. So that's another reason. Boy, we're developing quite a list. I think we should make a listicle and put it out there.
That would be good.
So do people think that social media is going to replace email? And if not, how do email and social media work together?
Yeah, so there's always, I get this question a lot, like, is one, as if they're in competition with each other. But again, what it's allowed me to do, and I do this for my newsletter, my own clients, is we'll take the newsletter, and then we'll take maybe 4 or 5 excerpts from the newsletter, like, 1 or 2 sentences. And that's what we run through their social media. And then we point it back to the newsletter, which is now a blog on their website. And so it lives on. And so a lot of times people say to me, oh, you're on LinkedIn all the time. Well, it's all automated. I'm just taking content I wrote, and then it just kind of keeps stirring the pot of the stuff.
Right.
And I am on there somewhat, but not more than most people. And what always surprises me is I could have a newsletter I wrote 6 months ago, and there's still people commenting on it. Sometimes it's the people who have commented on the original newsletter.
Yeah.
But you catch them at the right time. And again, it has this sense of you're out there. And if you're small, you need a way to scale your interaction. You can't do it on networking alone in person. There's just, not enough time. So the social has been really good, because it's almost like giving new life to what 20 years ago was. You send the newsletter, and if you signed up 5 minutes after I sent it, not only did you not see that one, you didn't see any of the previous ones because there was no blog. So it's really like, I like it. And every time there's a new social thing, I'm like, great, one more place to put your stuff.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I know. And I feel that way about social media too. For one thing, because I'm very social as a person.
Mm-hmm.
So especially during the pandemic, when we were all locked in at home, like I felt like a wild animal, like stuck in a cage, like, let me out of here. But at least I had social media where I could, connect and converse with people on a variety of platforms. So Michael, you have a book called The Likeable Expert. Why is it important to be liked as an expert?
I think it depends on what you do. Like if you could throw a baseball 100 miles an hour, I don't care what you're like at all. So it's a function, I think, this sort of likability thing has to do with what business you're in. The thing is, the opposite of throwing a baseball 100 miles an hour is you're a financial planner, you're a management consultant, a freelance writer, an attorney, a doctor. All those people, as good as they may be in what they do, the problem is I can't tell. Like I've had the same accountant for 22 years. And if you said, is she any good as an accountant? I'm like, how would I know? Like I haven't gone to jail, so she's good enough. But even after working with her, no idea. So, and if you ask people, do you like your doctor? And they're like, oh, yes. But, half the doctors in the country finish in the bottom half of their class. So there's a good chance yours is one of them. It doesn't really matter. So all these sort of professional services in particular, the problem is, and it's interesting, I think the more hoops you have to jump through to become that person, the harder to differentiate. Like every attorney passed the bar, every doctor went to medical school. So the fact that you're an attorney, I know you've been certified. So the problem is, how do I know if you're good? Which is why, to me, spending too much time claiming credibility based on degrees, how long you've been doing in the business, it's important, but everybody's got it. So the differentiator, though, is I can tell if I like my doctor. I can't tell how good she is. But again, I don't think it really matters unless you're getting a heart transplant. But I know if I like her. And when I say likability, I don't mean that you just do whatever anybody wants or anything like that. What I mean is you connect with this person. And so I may like my doctor. You may hate her. But but in order for her to make sure she has clients who she connects with, she has to somehow demonstrate who she is more. And so with newsletters in particular, I'm very big on you need to show the personal side, because the other stuff that I can Google how to do whatever, which is fine. That's what your newsletter is going to contain. But the more you have who you are in there, the more you're going to attract the people who like that. And frankly, push away the people who are like, no, I don't like this person. So I spent a lot of time with clients, especially in the beginning when we started a newsletter, kind of drawing them out of their professional selves, because there's this default of, I don't want to be seen too crazy or whatever. And, varying degrees of success with different people. But I'm always trying to get them to tell stories, share a little bit of who they are, because I think ultimately that's how people become to you. And that's how you end up with clients who are a good match for you. And so it's sort of everybody's better off that way.
Yeah, I always say that a strong personal brand will attract the right people into your network, and it will repel the people that you really don't want. And, you don't necessarily want to work with everybody. And especially if you're a solo entrepreneur, you probably can't work with everybody anyway.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Well, we're going to take a short break now, and we'll be back in a moment to hear more from Michael. But I want to remind you how you can get a PR Maven Things to Do Today, Pat. And Michael, you might just receive one in your mailbox.
Wow.
But for the rest of you, if you would leave a review and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast player, and then visit this link and submit your information, and we're going to send you one of these amazing orange Things to Do pads in the mail. The mail, that's like the thing with the mailbox, not your inbox.
Is that still a thing?
Yeah, I think so. Last I checked, although the way the Postal Service is going, I hope it survives, because I love the mail myself. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we'll be right back in a moment.
Sprague & Curtis is a locally owned real estate company. We're primarily focused in central Maine. I got excited about Nancy's book because she's so well known in the area for her marketing and branding techniques, and we're always looking to expand and learn and grow. And so a lot of us here at the office decided that we wanted to read her book and learn some new techniques.
It benefits Sprague & Curtis to have a large brand and audience because there can often be multiple years between transactions with clients. So it's important to network with them and stay in touch with them in those in-between periods. And this book really helped us learn some techniques and methods to continue to do that. We organized a small book group with Nancy's book with brokers in our office this winter to share information and remind ourselves how important it is to always be working on our network and continually reaching out to our customers.
Platforms like social media are important in expanding your business, but equally as important are handwritten notes, cards, letters. She inspired me to send her a note of appreciation, just thanking her for the book and her insight. In reading Nancy's book, I was excited to look to continue to grow our brand and our audience. I think she does a great job of motivating us.
Nancy's book really helped me learn a few things in marketing and branding and how important it is to stay on top of reaching out to clients periodically, staying top of mind, providing useful information, and really telling our story as a company.
So I want to thank my friends at Sprague & Curtis in Augusta, Maine. We just launched that video because I had received a nice letter in the mail from Lori Doobie, who's in that video. And when I got the letter, I immediately contacted her and said, let's make a video. And she was up for it. So that was awesome. So thanks. Well, we're back with more from Michael Katz of Blue Penguin Development. Michael's in Massachusetts today. He's in Hopkinton, which is actually where the Boston Marathon starts. And that's coming up in April, right, Michael?
Every April.
Yeah. Yep. On Patriots Day. Is that the day that the marathon happens?
That is the day.
All right. So this is where we're going to get into something that is new and interesting and different. Michael, you have a theory. Well, there's a saying, do what you love and the money will follow. And you're not so sure about that. What are your thoughts?
So that was my approach. In fact, when I went off to work on my own, I was trying to do what I really like to do. And you know, there's books. I think there's probably a book. I think there is a book with that title. So yeah. I was a big believer in find what you really like and everything else takes care of itself. And that was what I would say to people. And I kind of thought that's what had happened with me. But I sort of changed my view on that. Not that you shouldn't do what you love. The problem is, first of all, it's really hard for a lot of people to put their finger on that. It's like one thing if you're like LeBron James and you play basketball. It's like, well, obvious. But I think for most people, there isn't, this thing that equals I can make a living at it. And so also people, I think, get caught continually pounding on like, I love this thing, like, making hats or something. But there has to be a market for it and all of that. And so it can be a distraction. And then if it's not working, you think, well, I'm just not loving it enough, whatever. What I think is a better approach actually is to figure out what are you like really good at? That's hard too for a lot of people, because again, it's not usually I can play the guitar or play basketball as a thing that I'm the best at, but it's easier I think, to figure out. And I'm always saying to people, I was just talking to a guy the other day who's had a job for his whole career, kind of like I did 20 years ago, and is now trying to go off on his own. And my advice is, look, see if you can like really nail down, like, what's the unique thing about you? It's not I'm responsible and I'm good at leadership. It's like too broad. So for me, as an example, my real skill is writing, but not all kinds of writing. In fact, I'm not good at most kinds of writing. I can't write books or white papers or manifestos or direct response copy. I am really good at short format conversational writing in which I interview an expert and take their knowledge and turn it into something that someone else wants to read. It turns out that's what a newsletter is. The benefit of doing what you're good at, though, is you tend to like it. Not always. There's like the neuroscientist who like becomes a circus clown. But that person's an outlier. What I find is it's very satisfying to do work you're really good at because your clients like it. It's easier. Like if I write a newsletter for a client, I want them to go, perfect, or, change these 3 words. If they said rewrite the thing, that's a problem. So it's like satisfying to do work you're good at. And so you like it usually as well. And I think it's a clearer path to figuring it out. And as important, if you need to make a living from it, you need to be good at it. It's not enough to like it. And so that's my advice for people now. And as I look back on my own thing, even though it was really luck, because I just sort of stumbled into it. I wasn't doing it intentionally. The reason it's worked for me is because I sell a thing I'm good at. And so clients need you, and they don't have a lot of alternatives. Like, it's easier for me to get another client than it is them to find another guy who's going to do a newsletter the right way. So there's a lot of benefits to it. So yeah, the do what you love thing, I think, as much as I've told people over the years, I think it can lead you down to a path where you're sort of not getting any traction, and it's frustrating and all that.
Yeah, well, especially if you're going to start your own business, you need to have some business acumen too. I mean, whether you're making baskets or selling muffins or starting a bookstore or whatever, you need to have a business structure behind that. So that's something to think about as well. I always think about how I got into PR, and it was my father he passed in 2006, but he identified that I would be good in PR, and he worked for Westinghouse Electric Corporation. He arranged for me to job shadow with the women in the corporate PR division in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I'm so grateful to my father, because he called it, and PR has been something I have loved throughout my career. And I'm so grateful that I found the thing.
Right. Yeah, you got to find the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, we've talked about your career path, and have you really loved what you've done, or have you been happier and found more satisfaction since you've been running your own business?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I no kidding. I never made a cent that didn't come in a paycheck until I left my job.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would. Like, there's no entrepreneurial anything in my family. My dad worked in the same company in the same building his entire career. I have two older brothers. One's a tenured college professor. The other is a partner in a law firm. Like, we're not risk-taking people.
Yeah.
And I was like on the same path, but I really think of my life as having two parts, the part before and the part since. And even though when you work for yourself, it's not steady in terms of, the highs and lows can be very extreme, even in a given day.
Right.
Whereas, when I had a job, it was like a good day was like I found leftover cake in the lunchroom. It was just like, here we go, another meeting. And that's okay. And by the way, it's not for everybody. But, and I don't think of myself as a risk taker, but I now, when I look back on the last 20 years, I've done something I really like to do. In fact, retirement creates a problem because I'm already doing whatever I want every day and doing what I like. And so what else would I do?
Yeah, right.
I don't know. So I feel like, why not just keep going forever?
Yeah. I feel that way too.
Yeah.
Is there a book, a podcast, or an app that has been helpful to you or inspirational to you, and why?
Yeah, and I wish I knew the author, but I'm reading a book right now, I'm almost done, called Company of One. And it's about a guy who's talking about both the benefits and sort of techniques of working solo, but also scaling it. And I thought he had a lot of good insight. It's sort of the you need to keep growing book.
Oh, yeah.
Like even among people like us, there's people who will say, how are you going to scale your business? In fact, I don't hear it so much anymore, but people used to sort of describe what I do as a lifestyle business.
Right.
And I used to think, isn't that the point?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't scale. I work alone. I mean, I hire out some things like tech and design, but this guy kind of makes the point of why are you in business simply to monetize it or to exit it and get a big paycheck? Why not just do what you want? So I found that very sort of both reassuring and also some good ideas about working solo and what the benefit is. So Company of One, and I'm sorry, I don't know who's the author, but it's out there.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
How can people get in touch with you, Michael?
The easiest is just michaelkatz.com will redirect you to my main website.
Okay. So your website. Mm-hmm. But you said you're also on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn. That's my primary thing. And, it's under my name and I'm there. And reach out. Happy to connect.
Yeah. Well, as I said, you and I have been connected for many, many years. And I must thank you. I'm going to mention this now. You referred me to one of the most newsworthy clients that I've ever had in my career. So you referred me to Stephen Church, who at the time had a China company. He made the memorabilia for the royal wedding of Prince William and Kate. And so he came to you wanting public relations assistance in the United States for that royal wedding. And you referred Stephen to me. And so this shows the power of a referral from somebody who is trusted. I mean, he hired me without even really interviewing me. And then that actually generated more publicity coverage for my PR agency than anything I've ever done. And we were quite successful.
And interestingly, I've never met Stephen.
It's so funny. Yeah.
I've talked to him, but never met him. So yeah, staying in touch really pays off.
He has a similar business. He does email newsletters in England, right? Yeah.
Right.
So anyway.
I said, you can have Europe. I've got the US.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he's a very witty guy. And so, yeah, he transitioned from Church's China over to email marketing. And hopefully he'll watch this or listen to this podcast. And we'd love to have Stephen comment. So, well, this has been a real pleasure today. I'm glad that you were able to join me from Hopkinton, Mass. And I look forward to staying in touch and seeing what else we can cook up together.
All right. Thanks, Nancy. Good to be here.
Thanks. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to this episode of the PR Maven Podcast. I invite you to share a review of the podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation on Facebook. It's free to join, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you use an Alexa device, use your Alexa app to search the skills and games section to find and enable the PR Maven Podcast Flash Briefing. This will give you access to exclusive content and more PR and marketing advice. Thanks again for listening and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.